If something was really impactful at the age of 5, whatever that may have been, just tell me about it. If you're still thinking about it, obviously that must be important in some way.
I want to build that personal relationship. So I think that's really important.
The more I can know you, though, the more helpful I can be.
You're writing for the admissions committee, who are people.
Business school is not evaluating their technical skills, their financial skills. They're evaluating who they are as a person, who they are as a leader.
Unfortunately, a lot of applicants don't realize the power that their recommenders have in this process.
Welcome back to the mbaMission podcast. I'm Harold Simansky, and today we're taking a look behind the scenes of MBA admissions consulting with two longtime consultants who have worked with hundreds of applicants over more than a decade and bring a ton of perspective on what really happens during the MBA application process. Liza, Weale, and Rachel Beck. So today we thought it would be fun and hopefully useful to pull back the curtain a bit. What does a typical day actually look like for an admissions coach? How do consultants stay organized when they have a stack of essays, emails, and calls all competing for our attention? When do we lean on our colleagues for second opinions? And after doing this work for years, what have we gotten better at? And what are we still looking to improve on? Hi, everyone. So I've been doing this for about 10 years. What am I talking about? Being an admissions consultant. Liza, what about you?
Gosh, full-time. Well, I started this actually on the side and right as soon as I graduated from MIT Sloan, so 2002. And then I started doing it full-time with mbaMission in 2012, so well over a decade now. 15 years.
I've actually been helping people apply to college and grad school since I graduated from college. Wow. I actually graduated from grad school and became a journalist, because once you become a journalist, everybody assumes that you can write anything. So I would get my cousin's boyfriend's sister needs help with her college essays. So that's where I really began. But I've been doing full-time MBA admissions consulting since 2011, which is going to be 15 years this summer.
Wow. No, that's really something. So it's interesting. You were a journalist. You talked a lot about writing essays. What else do you do, and how important it is actually to help with the essays?
When I think about my journalism career, I helped people understand complicated things in the business world. It was all about storytelling. For most of my career, I covered business news, and sometimes those subjects are really hard for average readers to understand. And when I came to mbaMission, I kind of kept this mindset that it's all about the storytelling. So I'm helping my clients tell their stories to another general news audience, which is the admissions committee. So I use that same approach when I'm working with my clients. Like, in journalism, you want somebody to read the first line and all the way down to what we call the kicker of the story. We want somebody to keep reading about you. And with the essays, obviously, we don't want to lose the reader. We want them to read all the way through the essay to the kicker, to the end. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, let me just ask you, Liza, in the sense of, we talk about the kicker. What's a kicker, and how do you even get there?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't think I've even heard the expression kicker. So that's good.
I'm throwing in journalism-ese
No,
here.
I'm going to use it. But, I think a lot of it is people, when we're working with them, they come with a very preset story. This is my story. This is my greatest accomplishment. And I did this. And I was able to do that. And there's no like struggle. There's no challenge. So I think when you say the word kicker, I feel like, it goes back to grade school writing, or what we learned about good essays, of where you have the climax and then the denouement, and like that, like there's got to be challenge, because those are the moments where we really grow, where we really show what we're capable of, how we can respond to adversity.
If you want to be one of our success stories, sign up for a free consultation with a member of our full-time MBA admissions team. Since we've worked with tens of thousands of applicants over the past 2 decades, we can give you our honest opinion on your chances and help you put together your very best application. That is not a sales call, but rather your first session with one of us for free. We can give you a profile evaluation, answer specific questions about the process, review your resume, talk about your school choices, and so much more. Sign up at mbaMission.com/consult. We look forward to working with you.
So I think a lot of the work is helping people see beyond the surface level of their stories, their polished button-up version, and helping them recognize those challenges are the things that make you more human and therefore more likable.
I think a lot of people see themselves as prepackaged. And they don't realize that really the key to strong essays is what I call layering, where you're layering different stories together that show the same strong trait. And that helps really bring you alive, like in the eyes of the admissions committee. So I think about that a lot. Like, what's the theme to this person? Like when I'm reading a brainstorming document, which we have our clients put together, I'm always thinking about, wow, this piece and this piece and this piece all tell something really interesting about this person. And it's not prepackaged. Right. And I think in this like age of AI, where people feel like, oh, well, I can just upload my resume. It's going to tell me exactly what to write. AI doesn't ever think about it like that. And so something that I've heard from my clients as AI has become more and more part of our world, not our world, but the world that our clients are part of is, well, I don't think anybody would have thought of that. How did you come up with that idea? And so I think understanding that we're really looking at them beyond what's so obvious and helping them tell their stories in compelling ways.
No, that certainly makes sense. And you use the term brainstorming. Sometimes we use the term introspection. That's generally the first step in our process. And what's involved with that?
So the brainstorming process is really stepping back and highlighting. We have our clients put it in a document, and I recommend this for anybody who's applying to an MBA program, and writing down parts of their story, where they grew up, their family dynamic, how they chose where they went to college, what they're involved in outside of work, their career, highlights in their career, accomplishments, setbacks, their global experience, all these kinds of things. And when you don't put it down on paper, you can't see it all. It's just dancing in your head. Years ago, I had a client who did not want to do our brainstorming document. And he actually called Jeremy and said, she's making me do this brainstorming document. And Jeremy said, trust the process. And the process really works. And just as I was explaining before about kind of layering stories, you can't layer those stories if you don't see all the stories.
If you don't know what they are.
So I think it's really, really important to do that pre-work before you can't sit down and write an essay. No. It's impossible to do. It will never sound good. So doing this pre-work actually saves time in the end.
Yeah, I often refer to it. I mean, I warn clients, we call it at Gatehouse an experience inventory, but the same idea. And I just tell people, it's a fishing expedition. We don't know what we're going to find, because sometimes they'll say, well, wait, I'm only applying to this school. So can I just like really focus on what I'm going to write for those essays? Like, no, stop. To your point, like we don't know what you're going to write about yet. And so I warn them, I'm like, this is going to be an exercise. It's going to take time. You have to go in with an open mind. And it is a fishing expedition because I just don't know what's out there. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions, but that's when we can get people out of thinking, this is the essay I'm going to write, and it becomes much more organic. And then I feel like that's always like, I think what you were saying about spotting these different connections, I always think that's really fun, because sometimes I'm sure it's happened when clients are like, I never really thought about that. Yeah, that is true. And because it takes sometimes an outsider to see how these things relate to one another.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the biggest value added for our process many times. And that's the most unique piece of our process, which is you're doing something you generally never do. No, none of us ever pause and say, okay, how has my life come together? What are the things that are important to me? What have been the real milestones? That's what we also tell people, really low bar in terms of what you include. In the sense, if something was really impactful at the age of 5, whatever that may have been, just tell me about it. If you're still thinking about it, obviously that must be important in some way.
I've had clients that have come back to me saying, I've reviewed my essays and I just don't really understand why we didn't highlight this. And I say, well, this is the first time I'm hearing about it.
Right.
So,
oh gosh, yes.
So it's hard to highlight something that you actually know nothing about. So I'll actually get a brainstorming document from a client and think it's too thin and send it back. Saying, I don't think you put the time in here. Like, go back and add some depth to your stories. I think it will pay off, and it does pay off.
No, that makes sense. So with that in mind, what does a good client look like? And I'm going to define a client very broadly here in terms of just the ease in which they work, the ease in which they work with you, the result, what the end product looks like. What do you think when you speak to someone that first time?
I mean, I will tell people the minute they reach out for us for a free consultation and are thinking about is Gatehouse the right partner? I always say, well, here's what generally the clients who succeed with us, I mean, they're all really good traits. They're people who are willing and ready to work hard. We know the process it's like a second job. It's a ton of work. Slow and steady wins the race, not going to wait until the last minute. By the way, I'm the world's biggest procrastinator, so it's very easy for me to look for this in others. I'm not as good as it, but can certainly help people, stay ahead of the curve. Willing to work hard, ready to just be vulnerable. We work with a lot of clients that have to be on their best behavior, buttoned up all their time, and to say kind of like, no, I want to hear the real you. I'm not on the admissions committee. I'm not making the final decision. The more I can know you, though, the more helpful I can be. So no fronting with me, no polish with me. And then the third thing I always say is just open to feedback. It's a demanding job. We know it's a demanding experience. And I know we all hold our clients to like a high bar. We hold our own work to a high bar. And so therefore we expect a lot of our clients. So that's the other thing is, you have to be ready for coaching and willingness to at least explore. Because again, if you come in with some preconceived idea of how your essays are going to go, you might hear something, this is not the best strategy. Are you open to that? That's what I always say. I'm curious.
I'll build on that in a few different ways. During like an initial kickoff call that I have with my clients, I always say, I'm going to tell you a lot about my life. I'm going to tell you about my kids. I'm going to tell you about my dogs. I'm going to tell you about my husband, what I've done over the weekend. I'm going to share a lot because I expect you to share a lot too. So that's something
really interesting. Yeah.
And I do. And like when there are clients who went through the college application process with me with my kids and they still check in. How are they doing? How's this? How's that? And so I want to build that personal relationship. So I think that's really important. I also really stress all the time that this is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Yeah. And you would never, and I actually use the couch to 5K example, which, by the way, a lot of my clients don't really know what that is because that's kind of like a 2000s thing. And I'm dating myself, but the couch to 5K is, you're going to run a half mile, and then you're going to build up to a mile, and then you're going to build up to a mile and a half. And so I always say, you're not getting on the treadmill and running at 8.0 to the finish line. We're going to take our baby steps, but you have to give yourself ample time to get ready for your race. And so if you show up right at the end and you haven't done all this pre-training, you're not going to get the results that you want. Yeah. And so I think that's really, really important to keep in mind that the time and stepping back and kind of looking at like, is that the way I wanted to say that? Or I wanted to frame that is so important in this process. Mm-hmm. So I really, really think the best clients give themselves the room to step back and say, you know what, I didn't like the way we phrased that, or I thought of another idea for this. And the ones that come in, the people who are 3 weeks out, like, all right, I'm ready to go. Oh boy,
it makes our job hard. I mean, I think that's really the bottom line. I tell my clients frequently, if it's not messy, it's not ready. And what I really mean by that, it's like, I get to hear a lot about you. And I don't want to use the term intimate in some sort of weird way, but it's an intimate process. Yeah. You should be telling me things that you never expected you'd be telling me. Yeah. I think that's really the bottom line because, again, people think about, I have to talk about a struggle I've had or I have to talk about something that I overcame. Well, for many, many people, they're very lucky. There's nothing so obvious. Right. So at the end of the day, but at the same point, that's part of life, right? Yeah. Correct. Right. That's part of life. So we have to dig, we have to think, they have to think, we have to let things marinate in order to really get to a point we've reached a point where you're authentic, you're genuine. This truly is unique. It may not feel unique at the beginning, but it truly is unique.
Yeah. There is definitely like in the early stages, I feel such an ambiguity. It's almost like everybody, even I, like we have to take a leap of faith. We know we've been doing this for a long time. So we know we're going to get to somewhere good. But I often say like, it's going to feel murky in these first few weeks. And you're going to be like, am I even moving things forward? And sometimes we're not. We're going to rip it up. We're going to start again. And that's all okay. It's a little bit like, trust, you said, trust the process. We will get there. But, it can be anywhere from 2, 4, 5, 6 drafts of like, where are we going? But, just relax. And one thing you said, Rachel, is when people come back and be like, I have a new idea, sometimes they're nervous about being like, I had a different idea where, it's like, no, this is great, because if you're having this idea, it means you're reflecting more, you're digging deeper, and it's going to be more you. So that's always kind of a fun moment when they do that.
No, that's right. I will also tell my clients, listen, we have the right to go down the wrong road. At the end of the day, if we're not going down some wrong roads, we're probably not pushing. Really pushing hard enough.
I am taking notes already from this conversation. I love some of the things I'm learning.
Something I was just thinking about as you were talking, like when we are, our I guess, slower season is in the spring, right? The deadlines, most people don't apply in these later rounds. And I always feel when I get to May and June, I have to like reprogram my brain that, I'm back in it again. And I have to almost relearn all the things I already know. And it comes quickly once you do that first brainstorming, you're back in it. But you almost have to it's like getting back on the bike again. Okay, I'm a little shaky at first. All right, I'm in. Yeah. I'm in. And so it's okay as a consultant that I can feel that way. Yeah. It's just kind of relearning things that are second nature.
No, absolutely. So then we really started talking about essays. So at what point do we start thinking about essays? What does it look like? What does a good essay look like? And how do both pieces, the introspection and the essay writing, how do they actually dovetail?
I think a good essay, number one, answers the question that is being asked.
Yes.
Because all too often we have clients who say, well, I read my cousin's essay for this school. And I was like, that's great, but that isn't the essay question this year. Or that's your cousin's experience and that's not your experience.
Right.
So I think number one, and a very easy thing to do with clients is remind them, please put the essay question on the top of every document that you're doing so you're reminded to answer the question that is being asked. That's right. So I think that's something out of the gate is a great technique just to keep in mind.
It's good for me too. Like I will read an essay and be like, wait, what is the prompt? No, we're not doing it. So it's helpful to me always, even though we know these essay prompts in our, we dream about them. We know them word for word, but just to see them every single time to make sure, are we actually answering the question? Is it really this person's story? Becomes a great tool for us too.
Listen, I also tell folks, by the time we get to writing the essays, you really should know what's going to be in that essay. If we did our job right, and both of our jobs, if we've been talking about things, if we've been talking about different ideas, if we're trying to build this really big arc or narrative, then honestly, when we start getting to the essays, you should be, okay, Harold, here's what I really think is going to happen there, which then makes the essay writing just so much easier.
Also, don't be scared of outlining.
That's right.
Don't be scared of doing an outline. I tell my clients all the time, your outline can be any way you feel comfortable outlining. Sometimes I get what ends up being an essay in an outline form, but that's okay. They're just really deliberately thinking what is going in each paragraph. But it's okay and very smart to outline because it forces you to think, how is this flowing, right? What is the flow? I am also a very, very, very big read out loud person. I read out loud all the time. I have my clients, I say, read it out loud. You're going to hear things. It might not sound right to you when you hear it. So do that. Even from the earliest stages, I read out loud all the time.
And do you do that for early drafts too? Basically, one step of the process before someone sends an essay to you each time?
I'll be reading it out loud as I'm editing it. Yeah. Like if I edit something and I'm like, how's this sound? And listen, I probably have a heavier hand than most because my editing background, but I also give a lot of comments, probably too many at points, but I do read things out loud very early on because it helps me hear it. And then what I was talking about earlier, the aha of it, like, oh, these stories link up nicely together. I want the client to feel that aha also.
No, absolutely. Listen, what we say about essays, or at least what I say about essays, is you can't fall in love with the essay. There's an old saying here, kill your darlings. And what that really means is you may have spent a lot of time on one piece of the essay. You may love it. If it doesn't answer the question, if it's not moving the narrative forward, then at the end of the day, it has to go. And honestly, you need someone else to tell you it has to go. Right. You really need somebody else who is a heavy editor, because what makes great writing? Great editing.
Yeah, exactly.
I say it like with a smiley emoji though. Like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not sure this works here.
Yeah.
Happy face.
I mean, that goes back to like, it is an extraordinarily vulnerable process. Not only even applying to these great schools, putting yourself out there, but the writing process. But then, it's great to start to see clients evolve and more owning their stories, owning their experience, and sometimes also getting to be a better writer. I find, I'm sure we could dish about those expressions or words that we, I have a pet peeve against like was able to. I just am like, no, share what I was able to get that done. No, instead, let's see you in action. Share what you actually did. Just write the actions. Cut was able to, retell it. And these ways to draw it out for them, then they start being like, oh, I got it. So that's always a nice evolution too.
I think we also have to break them of the habit that this is an essay in the traditional sense of what an essay is to them. Like this, you can use contractions,
Yes.
get rid of in order to.
Yes.
That's one of my pet peeves. But like, this is not, you're writing for the admissions committee who are people. So
That's right.
like you are writing for people who would want to read about you. And that's where the show versus tell also really plays in very, very much. Like that's something that we all do all the time. Like, how would you tell this story with examples, right? Versus, I'm a great leader. Show how that leadership came together.
No, that's right. And showing versus telling, honestly, that is probably my biggest piece of feedback for folks.
Yes.
Because people aren't used to, again, that level of intimacy when they're talking to somebody else. At that point, then, okay, I'm going to tell you because many people just don't have patience to listen beyond that. But that's the nice thing about admissions committee members. A good admissions committee member is really curious about people, really wants to know what actually happened, not what you're telling me happened.
Exactly.
And always keeping that in mind.
I always say, like, we want the reader to be able to see your world. We want you want to bring them on your journey. We want them to imagine themselves in your shoes as you experience this. And I think, that's a way to free them up to, what'd you see? What'd you say? What'd you hear? How'd you feel? And then they start getting it and they're like, oh, to your point, it's not writing a college thesis. It's
not writing your cousin's essay.
Right,
And that's
right.
always one of our pet peeves as a firm. It's, my cousin is at whatever
always
school.
the cousin.
Exactly right. It's like my cousin is at this school and this is how he or she wrote it. But you're not your cousin. Or sometimes they'll say, someone from last year's class who I used to work with, here's what they said. I'm like, they did it better than you did because they did it authentically.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I bring that same mindset to the resume too. I have my clients read their bullet points on their resume out loud because I think it forces them to hear when something is very responsibility based versus accomplishment based. When you're kind of hearing it, you're like, oh, no, that sounds terrible. Or jargon.
Yeah,
sounds
jargon.
terrible. Like when you actually say it, I think that helps a lot too. So I think those techniques can really elevate your essays, your resume, your application prompts, whatever it might be.
No, that's right. I think resumes are really under-indexed in this process because, and part of it is everyone has a resume, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. You have a resume from that previous job. So, Liza, how is the resume from the previous job different from the resume you want to show as part of the admissions process?
Well, let me start in just saying, like, I love resumes. You said it's under indexed and totally agree, but I love it because the transformation, it's always night and day when they start with us with that professional resume. Responsibilities, where they really are describing the job itself, not what they've achieved in it. They also, there's a lot of jargon.
Select transactions,
a lot of words, CIM, LOI, whatever these, DCF, all the buzzwords that that come from their job because they were applying for a job that was evaluating their skills, that whether or not they could do those things. Business school is not evaluating their technical skills, their financial skills. They're evaluating who they are as a person, who they are as a leader. So really showing initiative. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about that first strong verb at every single bullet. How, if I scan down, is each one different? What is each one showing? If every single one is I modeled something out.
Yes.
Okay, so you can model. Yeah. Can you do anything else? So, it's really making sure we see you as a person, not as I can do this job well.
That's right. Correct. And also understand who the admissions committee members are. Yeah. They look at resumes all day. They know what an analyst at a big consulting firm does. That doesn't surprise them. They know what investment banker, junior investment banker does. That doesn't surprise them. So in that case, tell them something different. At that point, don't tell them you know how to use Excel. They know you know how to use Excel, right? There's no surprise there. Instead, have a section about your different entrepreneurial activities. I had this client of mine in the military. He was fantastic, but he also had these side hustles going. He used to sell sneakers online. He made like $30,000. I'm like, man, that goes right in the middle of your resume. Yep. That's really awesome stuff.
Yeah. I think a lot of applicants give us their resume, or clients give us their resume, and they're like, I think it's in good shape.
Yes.
I think it's in great shape. And I was like, wow, it doesn't have anything about you on the resume. I want to hear more about you.
Yeah.
Some of that might be what you did in college. Some of it might be what you do for fun in your life, and that's okay too. I was an admissions interviewer for 8 years for Columbia, and the first thing I looked at when I looked at a resume was the last line of interest, because I wanted to think, was there some thing in common I might have with this person? And I loved when people had quirky things or fast fiction, or one guy one time said he's a door photographer, and I was like, oh, well, what's that? What's
great.
that? Or pizza tours, or whatever it might be, things that I can completely relate to or wanted to learn more about. And so I'm constantly pushing my clients to, what's different about you? What's interesting about you? What would they want to get to know more about you? What could you contribute to the class?
Exactly.
And this all can exist on your resume.
Exactly. Being a foodie who loves travel, stop right there. What you're telling me is you like to eat and you like to go on vacation. That's fantastic. Also, don't tell me you've been to 34 countries. I once had a client who went to 108 countries, and I said to him, I had no idea 108 countries existed, let alone that one could actually do all of that. By the way, you want to guess how many countries there are in the world?
Tell us.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, 220.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah. So he's half there. So in that case, you're like 34 countries.
Yeah. But it can be revealing, because a lot of people struggle with that. They're all of a sudden like, I don't have anything. And hopefully you're having that conversation early enough in the process so you can, someone has time to start building out those other things. But often it's just really helping them brainstorm. Okay, but let's dig in. Did you really do nothing in college? Are you really doing nothing now? Right. Oh no, well I started this it's just a social tennis thing. We do it every other Wednesday night on the West Side Highway. Like, oh, ding, ding, ding. That's something. Let's bring it up. So it's, I think it also just can help us, or the more that we can help them tease out those things. I think also, again, they're like, oh, I never thought this would matter. But it does, because you're a person.
I think in my 15 years of doing this full time, I've learned to have more confidence in letting my clients tell stories that are not like so traditional, like, okay, you don't have great activities, but you've been in this run club and you helped 4 people over the years train for the New York City Marathon. That's a big accomplishment. I really like that. So kind of looking for those other places for good stories for someone who feels like a little dry. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then they're not dry at all. Yes, and you realize they're actually really interesting. So I think kind of, for me, having the courage to dig a little bit more has come up, and then opening the door for my clients to realize, wow, yes, I do have things.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And that brings us back to introspection. And how is a client successful through that introspection process? It's because they've been open. They've shared with us things that they never thought was relevant in any way, shape, or form to business school.
Yeah.
And that rolls then into recommendations. I always say resumes and recommendations, they really have to go together. So how do you two think about recommendations?
I think recommendations are such an important part of this process. And unfortunately, a lot of applicants don't realize the power that their recommenders have in this process. So one of the big education points that I have with clients from day one is these people or this person is going to get as much, if not more, words to talk about you. So we really need to pick the right people to write your recommendations, and you need to give them, I call it a cheat sheet, but a memo that lays out the process very clearly and gives them some ideas that they can draw from. Because I know I have a hard time remembering things about yesterday. Yes. So your manager might not remember this really important point that happened in your relationship. All you have to do is remind your manager of that, and it can come out beautifully in a recommendation. So as an applicant, they have to put in the work for their recommendation. And I think that a lot of applicants don't realize that has to take place. And by the way, this is where people who come late to the game in the application process end up really having problems because their recommenders are then rushed and they don't have the time to give them that good stuff that they can use. And you give it to them saying, here's some examples of things you can use or not.
Right.
Or not. Right. I'm not writing this for you. Yeah. Please don't.
Please don't.
Please don't write it for them.
Yeah, it's but the third rail.
This is a tip sheet for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. I feel like as a coach, I think recommenders are really hard because at this point, we have a dialogue. I have a dialogue with my client. Right. I know I can push them. I know when to push them. I can be like, all right, you're not turning things around quickly enough. We have a lot ahead of us. But, with the recommender, that's harder. They're not beholden to us to turn things around quickly. And so it is like, it always is, there's a little trepidation on my part because it is just another element, but it's so critical. And what you were talking about, Rachel, is really the best offense here, or the best offense here is that you choose people who are advocates and are willing to write and willing to spend the time. That's going to play in our favor, that in the long run, it's going to be a good recommendation.
That's right. And you also really use people who aren't going to just say, oh, top bucket consultant.
Right.
Because as we all know, there's a lot of top bucket consultants. There simply are. And in fact, frequently that's exactly what happens with some of my clients. They'll give me the metrics, promoted early, got extra bonus. I'm like, yes, but what's unique? You are one of 30, 40, 50 across the firm, and they're also applying the same school that you are. So you really need a champion. You really need to have somebody who says, sure, he's a top bucket consultant, but here's
why.
Even more.
Yes.
And here's what I see from this person rather from another person.
I also think that a lot of applicants don't understand that there's usually two recommendation questions. The first one is really highlighting your strengths compared to your peers. So that's all the positive about you. The second question is really what determines who's a good recommender, which is tell us a piece of constructive feedback that you've given the applicant and how has the applicant responded. And I feel that a lot of recommenders struggle with that question because they don't know what to say. So that's where when you're having your conversation with your potential recommender and you say, I'd love you to write the recommendation, and they say, sure, great. You then provide them, maybe not in that conversation, but in a follow-up note, here's a great example of the second question, which they often then use because the recommender struggles to figure that answer out. I also think that question is what you should use to determine who should write your recommendation. Like that, when you're thinking who should my recommenders be, that's what you're really focused on.
Right. And the arc really is some constructive feedback, but success at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how you applied it.
Yes.
And I think sometimes recommenders are nervous about that. They don't want to show the applicant in any bad light. So some of our job is coaching our clients to coach their recommenders on, no, it's okay. And Rachel, what you said about I remember this time, if the person is choosing someone who's been an advocate, who's been a mentor, who's been a manager, surely that person has learned from the manager, the mentor, and has those moments where that person really affected their lives. So really, arming and reminding the recommender of those times, but also it's okay to talk about this as long as Harold, you just made the point, you show, and then what? What did you take that feedback and do with it? Which is a really good story.
It's great, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had an admissions committee member on this podcast say the only recommendations they believe are the bad ones. And I think her point was a little broader than that, which is the authentic ones. This idea here of constructive feedback. Okay, tell me what you know about this person. Tell me about how you've grown, how they've grown, and then really how they are as a professional in terms of their ability to transcend themselves, their ability to move forward.
Yeah.
And that means, of course, suddenly a much different looking career, which is what business schools look like. So we already talked about this can be really quite a time consuming process. I tell my clients 50 to 70 hours. So at some point though, we get the flywheel going and things are really going well and we start landing the plane. But what are we actually done? Because with a creative piece, like an essay, it need never be done. So Rachel, how do you think about when the process is done?
Well, when I first start working with clients, I say, we're done when you decide we're done. Like I basically put it on them. I said, you will know when you're done. You will know when you're done. And please, it can't be the day the application is due because I can't live through that stress. Every year I have those people and I can't live through it. But I said, you'll see your package start coming together after 3, 4, 5 drafts. Like you'll start feeling it coming together. And I always say, then set things aside and come back to it. And that coming back to might happen 3 or 4 times. Like you might do school number 1 and then move on to school number 2 and then go back to school number 1 to read it again and again and again. But you should be able to print it out and sit down and read it through and feel like I've done everything I can do. Like I don't feel there's anything else in me that I need to add to this. Like I feel great. And then it's time. Yeah. It is time to let go. At the very end, if you're making changes, you're just like wordsmithing nonsense and you're actually not making it better. You're making it worse.
Yeah.
So,
we're making it different.
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, different is not better.
Yeah.
Yes. So I say, I want you to hit submit and feel like you've put everything on the table. I know I have.
That's right.
And then feel good about that final moment and be proud of yourself. Yeah. Like that's a celebration that you've done everything you can.
Yeah. Sometimes clients will say, well, what grade would you give this? And I said, that's not the exercise. This is not an essay you are submitting for an English class for a grade or anything like that. It is, does it represent you? So when I give you a grade, that's what I'm assessing. Not if it's well written. That's not what's being measured.
It's not creative writing here.
Yeah. So I give an A if I feel like it sounds like you. And one of my biggest compliments on an essay, and I say, it's really nice. Because like that to me is like, it captures who you are as a human. It captures, your, whatever it might be, the whole application, it captures who you are. And for some reason, the word that comes to mind again and again is, it's nice. It sings.
That's great.
How does this compare to other essays that you've read? That one, we're not doing that. I'm looking at it. Do I feel like it's you? And do you feel like it's you? More important than what I feel.
That's right. Absolutely.
Do you feel like it's you? And then they see, yes, okay, I got it. Yeah,
right.
it's ready.
When they ask for a grade, that means the whole class is being graded on the same rubric. Right. Which is wrong.
Right.
It's not being graded the same way. And we have to remember there's all these different metrics that go into the admissions committee's decision.
Yeah.
It's not just the essay.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
your whole package.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
And again, it's a human process. At the end of the day, the admissions committee are people.
Yes.
Do they feel like they know you? Do they like you? Or are they somebody who they want in their class? That's what it really comes down to. And every piece really has to come together to deliver that message.
Do either of you have some sort of checklist that goes through your mind as you're doing like a final review, as you're thinking like, yeah, this is set?
Yeah. I think about alignment, to be honest with you. You cannot have the different pieces of the application say different things about this person. It really, it's a mosaic. Everything has to come together and then really create one picture.
I agree. One, the end piece to be authentic to the client.
Yeah.
When I read it, I want to say like, yeah, this is telling a great story about so-and-so.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right. And listen, if you want to start the process of doing applications, working with us, by all means, sign up for a free 30-minute consultation with me, with Rachel, with Liza. We'd love to chat with you.
Exciting news! You can now access On Track by MBA Mission for free. Take our 2-minute onboarding questionnaire to personalize your learning path. Choose the free plan, and you'll have unlimited access to our complete modules on MBA application timelines, standardized testing, your professional background, community leadership, school selection, and more. You'll also get access to select lessons from our Brainstorming, personal statement, essay, resume, and recommendation modules. It's a great introduction to the On Track platform and will help you jumpstart the MBA application process. Get started today at ontrack.mbamission.com.